I have the honor of inviting up Sephirah Shmita from Living Tree Alliance and Jacobs and all good things in Vermont. You'll introduce yourself, but this is part of a series that we've been doing, exploring Shmita, which we'll learn more about here, over this month of Elul. Please.
It's fun to see who's on this video too. Great. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I'm really grateful to be able to share with you in this format tonight. And I want to thank Susan Bachner and the Ritual Committee for inviting me to speak, and Susan for really embracing this Shmita study. And thank you, Rabbi David, for your meaningful leadership of our community. And I also want to thank and mention Hazon, environmental Jewish organization that really prompted me in 2007 to get interested in this Shmita topic. So I share with you today as a food grower, a community builder, and a wellness coach who enjoys taking the time for reflection and personal growth. Today, what we'll review is what Shmita means, look at the text a little bit, and try and apply it to our lives. So the Shmita year starts with Rosh Hashanah, which is just 11 days away. So we're stepping into the Shmita year, and it is a 7-year cycle. So every 7 years, we get the Shmita year, which means, does anybody know what it means? No. So Shmita literally means to release or to let go. And I am going to talk to you about it today with actually 4 R's. And so that's reflected in rest, reflect, release, and receive. And my hope is that you'll find a way to make this meaningful in your own life and embrace rest, reflection, release, and receiving. So we can start with the text. It is mentioned Shmita in a few different places in the Torah, in particular in Vayikra, Leviticus, and Devarim, Deuteronomy. And I'm going to read you the text from both of those places, as I think it's very interesting. And God spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you come to the land which I am giving you, then the land shall rest, a Sabbath for Adonai. For 6 years you shall sow your fields, and for 6 years you shall prune your vines, and you shall gather in their produce. And in the 7th year there shall be a Sabbath of solemn rest for the land, a Sabbath for Adonai. You shall not sow your fields, and you shall not prune your vineyard, and the Sabbath produce of the land shall be yours to eat, for you and your manservant and your maidservant, and for your settler who resides with you." So that's from Leviticus. And from Devarim, Deuteronomy, it says, "At the end of 7 years, you shall celebrate the Shmita year. And this is the manner of the Shmita. Every creditor shall release any debt owed by his neighbor and his brother and sister when God's Shmita year comes around." So in these texts, in the first one, we hear the word rest. And in the second one, we hear the word release. And so it says, let the land rest and release all debt. And so the Shmita has so many different aspects. And so there's an aspect of bringing back to equilibrium. But if we go to the rest, what does it mean to let the land rest? And I've been thinking a lot about this. And when I walk around my land, when I don't grow something on the soil, it doesn't just rest and go to sleep and nothing happens, but things grow there, and they may not be the things that I really wanted to grow there. And it may look a little wild. But then if I look a little bit closer, I might find that actually these wild weed plants are really nourishing and might be the medicine that I actually need. And we can see that in the dandelion and the yellow dock and the red clover, if you're familiar with these plants. And then sometimes also certain plants volunteer themselves, ones that I really like tomatoes or a beautiful flower. So there's an aspect in Shmita of trusting the wild nature of things, and that the wild will grow up and it will be actually what we need, even though we didn't have as much control in what we put there. But if we go back to the text, it doesn't just say rest, let the land rest. It says, for 6 years you shall sow your fields, and for 6 years you shall prune your vines, and you shall gather in their produce. So it is actually suggesting that we need to prepare for our rest. We need to do the work in order to create the space to rest. And so from a land perspective, that may mean that we want to plant a bunch of perennials, plants that will come back each year and keep nourishing us. And on a personal and organizational level, it's time to take inventory, get clear on what we want to accomplish, what we want to bring into the world for these next 6 years. And let that effort take shape. So, so we're working for 6 years, and then on the 7th year, we rest. However, in those 6 years of working, we have the 7th day, we're told to rest. And so I think this is very interesting in our culture, that in our Jewish culture, we're told it's so important to rest. And when I look around at our current American culture, it's like work, productivity. We want to keep producing. But it's really so important that we rest so that we can be revived for the work that we are to do. So once we have taken rest, then we can move to reflection. Oftentimes, if we're resting, we have a more clear aspect of reflection and being able to reflect and see things a little bit differently. So in taking time to reflect, we need to slow down, quiet ourselves to understand what our work will be for the next 6 years before the next Shmita year. And it's an opportunity to consider how we want to be and how we want to show up in the world. And currently we're in the month of Elul, and the month of Elul comes around every year, and we have a whole month where we're actually encouraged to do reflection work and to do teshuvah, which actually means to return to who you are. So reflection is a big part of this, so that then we can refine our characters and get clear on who we want to be and show up as that. Oftentimes what emerges when we have this clarity of what the next step in the work is to do is there's the aspect of release. And so what we need to release, what no longer serves us, comes up, and we realize, okay, I need to let go of this. I need to maybe not act in this way, or refine my character and focus on growth in other areas. If we come back to the nature aspect of it, if we're growing perennials, we're making a choice to grow those perennials and not other things, right? And so we're releasing some of the other things that might grow there. And if we think about it in our own lives, choosing what we want to focus on allows us to release other things. And so if we want to cultivate our relationships with our beloveds or with our children or with our spouses, then we can't necessarily work 24/7. And so we have to release some of that time so that we can intentionally create what we want to have in our lives. And of course, releasing is about letting go of control somewhat. And so allowing what is to arise. And that brings us to the 4th stage of receiving, and to receive. So the Shemitah really is opening us up to receive. We plant and prune for 6 years, and we gather in the produce. So even though on the Shemitah year, we're not supposed to be planting and tending the earth, we are allowed to reap the harvest. And so this is not about denial. This is about resting and reflecting and being able to step into receiving and enjoying the fruits of our labor from the last 6 years, so that then we get recharged and we're ready for the next 6 years. And just this aspect of receiving, I'm reminded of my tomatoes and the sun gold tomatoes, which I work so hard from March until now to get to fruit. And now they're fruiting. And some days I'm so busy, I got to do this and this and this. I'm forgetting about the sun gold tomatoes, and they're going to rot on the plant. And so the receiving is stopping and picking your tomatoes and eating it mindfully and really taking in that nourishment. So in conclusion, Shmita is a year when we really shift things up so that we can see them from a different perspective. And we can do this on a personal level, on an organizational level, on an agricultural level. It can apply. We create more time for rest. The way a vacation can just help to reorient us with a new perspective. And we step into allowing rather than controlling, and take the time for reflection so that we can attune to our true selves and really step into our true purpose for being here on the earth. We release what no longer serves us so we can come back to our center and to our truth, and so that we can open up to receiving all the blessings that life has to offer. So I want to take us all in for a one moment of rest and quiet so that we can hear our inner self. So I invite everyone to just take 3 deep breaths with me. And so I invite everyone to find some time in the next 11 days before the new year of Rosh Hashanah, before this new Shemitah year, to find some time for rest and quiet and reflection so that you can consider how you want to engage in these principles, how you want to engage in this next cycle. So thank you so much. As a community builder, I also want to add that it's an time to think about our successes over the last 6 years. And when we are at the Oneg, I invite you to ask your community member, what have you accomplished in these last 6 years before we move into the 7th Shemitah year? Shabbat Shalom.